Hi everyone, my name is Patrick, and my major topic is an experiential study of story-driven games, which aims to answer the question of why and how do story-driven games motivate players to play. And so before I delve into my findings, I would like to go through some background of and significance of my research topic. And in the age of modern day technology, video games have now evolved into a significant medium of storytelling, which differentiates itself from other passive media. So nowadays, we see that video games have evolved to become this sort of media that is more interactive compared to previous, more traditional media, such as movies and TVs and books. Because now games offer the audience, who are the players, a way to interact with the story and in a way change what story is being told to them through the player's actions. And so in older video games, a lot of the games used to have what we call embedded narratives, which are pre-generated content that exists prior to a player's interaction with the game. Whereas nowadays, a lot of games are moving towards what we call emergent narratives, where the players start to craft the story that the game is told to them through games that are non-linear and have branching storylines. And because the repercussions of the player's actions manifests itself in the game's world, we can see this sort of emergent narrative being a popular thing now in video games. And we will explore more of this later. And the reason why this research is important is because while storytelling in games is partly subjective, this research aims to focus more on a user-oriented outcome. And we are not trying to find a way to craft the perfect story, but rather to understand how different types of storytelling can have various effects on the player experience. And so some of brief findings on some of the player motivations that I found in my research is that the protagonist effect, the chance to become a hero, is one of them. The player curiosity and the not real phenomenon is another one. And the player character empathy is the third main point. So all these are factors in and techniques in story-driven games where it helps the players become more engrossed in the game. It kind of shapes the experience of the players in the games in a positive way, and we'll explore more of it in this section. So the protagonist effect. In Boston's research, which is he conducted a research with his team on Telltale games, and participants get to play these Telltale games, which are games that are very story heavy, and they offer a lot of options to the players. That is up to the player's choice to choose how the characters will react to certain situations and which characters live or die. So there's a lot of morality tied to these choices. And so the first point is the protagonist effect and role-playing value. So what Boston and his team discovered was that in this group of people who played who played these Telltale games, a lot of the choices that the participants make are actually based on the characters that they play rather than something that they decide for themselves. And what they found out was that in Telltale games, one of the example was the game A Wolf Among Us. Players take control of this character called Bigby. And so a lot of players, instead of choosing choices that they will choose as themselves, they choose choices that they think Bigby will choose. So Bigby is this male detective, and he can turn into a werewolf. So a lot of people try to role play as that character and choose choices based on that character. And so a bunch of theories popped out from this observation. And one of the theory that Circle pointed out was that there are these differences between the real self and the second self. And in these games where players can take on the role of a different character, someone who is not themselves, then there is this inclination for players to try out a new character that they think that they've never tried before. And so they try to role play as that character, which gives them the freedom, and it makes the game even more fun for them because it just allows them to play in a way that they will never have played before. And so in here we can see a lot of the participants' responses. One of them said like, oh, I tried to make decisions of my character should make, even if my decision looks like a bad one, I choose it because it suits my character. And these are the responses that show this role-playing value effect. Another one is the curiosity and the not real phenomenon. And so what this means is that in some of these choices, players also tend to choose choices out of curiosity and not from themselves. And they choose these choices based on curiosity or on a whim without really considering the moral repercussions, because they know that the game is not real. It does not carry any real life repercussions, no matter how severe the choices they make are. And so a lot of these people also tend to like playing these games because it gives them the freedom to choose whatever they want to choose and see how they turn out. And a lot of them choose choices that seem to be the most fun to them because of this curiosity and the not real phenomenon. And so because of that, the virtuality and the opportunity for choices in these branching games give them this freedom that makes players only more engrossed in the game. And so there's one more finding that I'd like to explore here, which is the unreliable game master and the concept of wants versus needs. So when we dig down deeper into story-driven games, there's this spiritual journey in some games of overcoming the mental and physical challenges of the player's character. And so this is what Solarski described as the needs, whereas the wants are what the player and their character wants, such as beating the game or finding the treasure. Those are the end results. But what Solarski argues is that the needs of the player character is more meaningful than the wants of that character. And an example is like in the game Firewatch, the player and its character's wants might be to find out the truth and find out this mysterious figure who is haunting them and try to get them to stop. That might be the initial want of the player and the character. But over time, as they progress through the game, the player character realizes that, hey, it's actually not about finding the mysterious figure. It's not about discovering this ghost, because the ghost never existed. In fact, that mysterious figure that continuously torments the player's head is actually a symbolism of the dementia that the characters are experiencing in that game. And so the spiritual fulfillment, in this case, the need of the player character, is rather to empathize with victims of dementia, which they experience the effects of dementia throughout the game. And so that's the message that this game is trying to deliver, and that's the reason why Solarski argues that in Firewatch, the spiritual fulfillment is so much more meaningful than achieving the end goal itself. And so when a player fully empathizes with their character, that's the hallmark of effective storytelling. And that's when players are satisfied with the story in itself, and they can be motivated to complete throughout the game and finish it. So in conclusion, this research explores various game storytelling and how it affects the player experience and motivation. And so we explore through scientific and academic readings, the psychological side of how some branching games can motivate players through giving them freedom in their actions and exploring new roles. Whereas from a designer's perspective, we learn how there are games that employ non-linear narratives and unreliable game masters, and this concept of wants versus needs that can help in fostering this empathy of the player towards their characters, which strengthens their connection to the overall story of the game. And that's it. Thank you, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.